In my opinion, Goad is one of the single greatest mechanics that they've ever introduced to the game. I love the multiplayer dynamics of Goad. Goad speeds the game up because everybody's, hopefully attacking each other, right? And also, if you've ever been in a game, I have a friend, we always kind of poke fun because he doesn't ever have a lot of flying creatures in any of his decks just by chance. So a lot of times he takes the brunt of like the flying creatures when people need like attack triggers or damage triggers, right? So for him, something like that, goad is great, right? Because if you goad that 6/6 dragon, well, guess what? It has to go at somebody else. We play against a knight's deck. Well, guess what? Sidar Jabari can attack somebody else. It's just a fun mechanic, and I fell in love with it really early on. But the problem was we were playing 3-player commander, which is honestly kind of awful, but it just wasn't the place. It's not good to play Goad when you have three people because then the one person is just like playing puppet master, like watching the other two attack each other, and it just kind of like doesn't feel great. At least when you have four players, they have two options of who they can attack when they're goaded. Okay, they can't attack you under most circumstances, but they can choose one of the other two players, right? You could play Goad differently. There's legendary creatures like Marisi and Baloth and Carter. Carter's not Goad, but it's essentially, you know, does the same thing, right? You're forcing combat onto somebody's entire board or the entire board, depending. And these kind of things can be unfun because you're just like every turn, oh, no matter what happens, I have to attack and do this with everything. I'm losing my value creatures. And I can see where that's annoying. I went a more political aspect. So with my cross deck, I'm trying to give you a shield counter and 1/1 counters so that you're getting stronger and it's worth it to you. And if you're already a combat focused deck, I'm going to give it to the creature. I'll even ask you, which creature do you want me to put it on so that you can feel like, oh, we're making a deal here. They're strengthening my creature. And sure, it has to attack somebody, but I'm okay with that because it's helping my deck do its thing. I don't necessarily need to attack that person, right? And I think that makes it a lot more fun. The Nelly Borka precon is super fun. Anyone who's played it can probably tell you that you don't even need to goad that much for the most part, unless there's people that are just really salty about their opponents getting cards. If you're just playing a nice casual game, people will do all kinds of things to attack each other to get the card draw. They don't even care that the Nelly Borka player is drawing a bunch of cards. They're just like, yeah, I want that card draw. It's essentially like Super Monarch while Nelly Borka's on the field. So a lot of times you don't even need to play, a ton of goad effects. Or, that's just more of a backup when people decide that, Nelly Borka's overstayed her welcome. I also have an Alayla deck that's just about casting spells on other people's turn and making fairies. And I feel like the goad in that is not the focus at all. But it is a nice little touch because it feels like the fairies are playing tricks on people. And that's just kind of really cool. It feels, it feels like right on point with the flavor of what the fairies are doing. But that's not a goad deck, really. And I've never had any complaints about it while we're like playing. So I think you can do goad in a way that's exciting and gets combat moving and gets people attacking when they normally wouldn't. But you can also do it, in a way that's like beneficial to the person. Yeah, some cards are going to have to go. Like I remember last time I was playing my Goad deck, it was like, I think it was Nelly Borka. It was like, all right, I'm going to goad Sir Conrad because we need to get Sir Conrad off the field, right? Sir Conrad the Grim is an absolute nightmare to let sit on the field, especially as the game, progresses. So certain things, if you play something that's just like a remove on site card, then yeah, maybe that's going to get goaded so that hopefully someone blocks and takes it out. But for the most part, I'm all about letting people do their thing and playing goad almost as a political thing, but also helps to keep me alive in case I'm the easiest target for free damage, similar to the example I gave with the flyer. You're the person without the flyer, well, guess what? You're taking the damage. But with the goad, now someone else has to take that damage. And I think unlike other things in the game where people get upset because, oh, I don't want all my stuff removed, like don't board wipe, don't remove this, don't do that. It lets them keep their stuff. It's kind of like removal, but it also allows the game to progress because everyone is hopefully dealing damage to each other or creatures are blocking and taking each other out and stuff like that. And it just advances the game and it feels really fun to play. And I really highly recommend Goad. It's been a little salty in my play group. I think the biggest salt explosion we've ever had was based on a game with Goad. And that was because I had played the Nelly Borka precon, and then later in the next game I played Cross Defense Contractor, and so it was too much of the same thing where towards the end of the game, like in the Nelly Borka game, it's like, oh, here's Taunt from the Rampart. The Cross game, it's like, oh, here, let's put a bunch of counters on stuff. Now it's all goaded. And I think when you get to the mass goad towards the end of the game, people might feel like, oh, I was going to win on my turn, and then they don't get to win, so they get upset. And that could be done with, it doesn't need to be goad for you to be upset that you thought you were going to win on your turn and you didn't. Another thing I would say is don't go on a villain monologue about how you're going to win on your turn if you're allowed to untap, because that's a surefire way not to get an extra turn. But seriously, Goad does so much work in casual EDH, and if you build it a certain way, it can actually be fun for the whole table without being just a forced miserable experience entirely.